And Noah, if you wanted to share screen, did you check that box to make sure that you could
Yes,
share
just a
audio?
second. Yeah, just 1 second. I need to do this the right way, include sound,
Perfect.
because we do have a video at the end. And let's try this one more time.
We can see your screen. It's on PowerPoint, but not yet loading.
Yeah, let me turn off my camera because that may be a bandwidth issue.
Sure, no problem.
And let me just refresh real quick because I reshared with sound and it needed to requeue.
As technology does.
Sure.
So let me just re-forward back to my slide. I just did a quick refresh. Thanks, folks. Bear with me. This is where I need Jeopardy music.
If we were in person, we'd all be chuckling and gossiping if we were in person. So I always say this is
Well, if
just
we were in
built
person, we'd still be trying to get everybody into the
conference room.
conference room, right?
Right. After a break for sure. So we're already ahead of schedule. So that's perfect.
All right.
Right, we got 40 people.
Hopefully this will.
They're doing well. Right, so even at the turn of the hallway, right, it's doing really well.
Yeah, hopefully this will load in just a moment, folks. I apologize. There is always a bandwidth issue in my building sometimes, and we have a lot of people on the call. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
It's visible.
Yay, terrific. Okay. So I'm going to leave my camera turned off because I don't want to mess with the bandwidth. So trust me, I am here. My name is Noa Eisenberg. Actually, I'll turn it on for a moment and then I'll stop sharing when I start to go through the deck. Hi, everybody. My name is Noa Eisenberg. I am a global black belt for Microsoft Viva. Bob Stedman, who opened up the discussion, is my peer. I know the group here very, very well. I've worked very closely with Stephanie and her team at Avanade. I'm responsible for supporting the Canadian business. So we stay pretty aligned as far as our North America efforts. So today I'm going to spend some time speaking with you more specifically about all these amazing things, all these experiences. We often get questions about security, privacy, and compliance as it relates to the experience within Viva. And I'm going to give you the abbreviated version and then kind of a little, in-depth journey of some documentation that was just released last night around 7 p.m. Central Time. That is going to really make it easy for you to understand how we've encapsulated not just the experience that you heard Stephanie talk about with syntax and topics and search and 365 and kind of in Teams, but also in every independent Viva app and where we're at with that today. So let's first start with understanding how security works in Viva. And I'm going to surgically go through security, privacy, and compliance in that order, because I want you to understand kind of that's how we're looking at it. I'm going to turn off my camera because I want to make sure that everything comes through well. So let's start with security, right? And Viva and security kind of being at the core of where we are in Microsoft Viva. And both, the functionality and experiences that you heard Bonnie and the team talk about, they're integrated across that 365 experience in different ways, right? So the first thing I want you to think about, right, is 365 security capabilities, right? The things that you would traditionally identify as role-based access, identity and application management, threat detection and remediation. Those all apply to Viva within the guise of security in 365. And then additionally, you can set specific settings, and we'll talk through that within the policies of the applications that Viva interacts with, right? Topics and learning and engage are perfect examples of some of those nuances in which you have ultimate control about security. What's most important, and where I'd like you to ground the lens that we're going to talk about security, privacy, and compliance in that order, is that depending on the app you're using and the use case that you're using it in, you're going to inherit, right, all of your security configuration and options from Teams and SharePoint. And then you're going to rely on identity management through 365 users and groups. So you're going to look at those interactions and those settings, and that's going to inform how you're going to forward the experience. And you can, look at all the documentation that we've included in the link, but I just kind of wanted to ground in all of these things that you heard us talk about, all these experiences, all these technology, this connective tissue that we're building within the culture that's already existing within your 365 framework for security. So some things to consider before we set up Viva, just commonplace, things. And the reason that I'm sharing this is because a lot of our customers realize, wow, we actually lost sight of some of this stuff within COVID. We need to reground ourselves, right? So just some fundamentals, right? Protect the data by implementing the access controls, really understanding who's got access to what, why, and then use Azure AD to handle some of that. A lot of our customers are actually rethinking the data model and the organizational data file within AD, because that's what's feeding some of the insights and the informed organizational reporting that you heard Stephanie so eloquently talk about, and the team from Avanade so eloquently talk about. Think about using things like multi-factor authentication, right? We're only as strong as our weakest link. And then make sure that you plan for incident response, right? And this goes across, any security threshold, but we want to make sure that we know what the data is, we're securing that data, and we're protecting that data. And the good news is that we're not collecting any personally identifiable information. We're not collecting anything that isn't randomized and de-identified several times. We can show with great, detail, how that data actually shows up in the reports. And it's nearly impossible to, figure out what that even means, because we're collecting, without getting on top of it, we're collecting the inputs and outputs of how groups over a certain number work, as Stephanie explained. So, some of the roles, just a slight note, some of the roles exist in the application. Some of those roles exist within Azure Active Directory, and some, like topics, as I mentioned, are within the security group within the application itself. So take the time to talk through. Is there a
Yeah.
question in the chat?
No, actually, hey, Noah, this is Tanner.
Sure.
Yeah, everyone, I'm from customer experience engineering. I've been working with Noah, and I've been working closely with the Viva engineering teams to get these compliance features built into the Viva applications. I just want to underscore what Noah said. We're not collecting any information that isn't pseudonymized or anonymized. And Viva, each one is a little bit architecturally unique in a sense, but they're all built on Microsoft 365. They're all built or on the Microsoft Cloud in general, on Azure, on Dynamics. So you're going to get that Microsoft Cloud level of security, that those control frameworks that you're already familiar with. Viva is going to inherit those control frameworks. You're going to be able to get the assurance you're looking for from that control framework inheritance. So just wanted to add that. Thanks to Noah.
Thanks, Tanner. And I'm sorry I didn't take the time to properly introduce you at the start of our discussion.
No,
we just kind of went right in. So
we are just fine.
thank you. Thank you for jumping in. You're a great wingman. Any questions on this, folks? Can I move forward? Want to make sure there's nothing in the chat. I'll take a quick pause. Are we good? Okay.
Nothing in the chat yet, Noah.
Okay, terrific. Thank you. All right, so this should spark some interest. Tanner is here to answer any questions and whatever comes up in the chat. But we wanted to give our customers a sense of where we're at. Now, obviously, we can't share specific dates yet, but we expect we will be able to start to share specific dates for some of those items in orange sooner than later, obviously. But we wanted to do right by our customers, and we wanted to make sure that we explain to you where we're at and where we're going and where our intention is. So right now, we are meeting GCC, Go Local, and the MinBar for FSI compliance for connections, topics, and insights, the personal insights. As you can see, we've created a bit of a chart here for you, which gives you a sense of where we're at with the other pillars and the timeframes in which those are evolving. So we'll be able to speak specifically with you on a case-by-case basis within your accounts. But I think what's important to note is that for organizational insights, learning, engage, and amplify, and goals, we are, very much within the sweet spot of where you are in your strategic planning across your employee experience. And we see this as a pretty good place to be, because we know that between learning, engage, amplify, and organizational insights, as well as with what we already have existing, we're building some very, very valuable and intuitive solutions that meet the use cases and the requirements and the challenges that multiple customers are seeing. So rest assured, we are moving to stay as close to that 6-month mark, as close to that 9-month mark, as close to that 12-month mark as possible, because we realize the importance of being able to address this. But as Tanner mentioned, there's nuances within every one of these pillars that we have to address very carefully. So we're balancing between the demands of what our markets and our customers are telling us and how we can prioritize across our product engineering teams as well. I'll pause here to ask you if there's any questions, and I apologize for the correction here. I could have sworn I corrected that additional capitalized L, so I'm just going to call myself out on that. But are there any questions that Tanner and I can address before I actually take you to the next slide, which is all the updated documentation, which is kind of when I take you on the little 10-minute tour. So perhaps I should take a quick pause, Abby, and surface any questions, or I can move right into the little tour de force on the updated documents, if that's what the group would like to hear.
Yeah, really quickly in the chat, we had a question about nomenclature, so I just wanted to address that. So that top row there, FSI MinBar compliance, that relates to financial services industry. That's not government, so likely not of interest to most people on this call. I believe this is a government crowd. But that relates to the ability for the world's global systemically important banks to adopt the Viva services. That's a high bar that Microsoft meets. They have stringent standards. And certainly when we meet the standards of government and we meet the standards of financial services, we can meet the standards of the rest of the industries in the world. So that's part of Microsoft's overall business strategy. GCC Mod, GCC or GCC Mod, as you might see it called, is our first tier of government cloud. Then we go to GCC High, and then there's a DoD level as well. So GCC Mod is kind of our entry level government bar. So that middle row is going to be what likely this government crowd is going to be focused on. And then Go Local. So Go Local has to do with being able to store data canonically within the bounds of a given country. Right now, we have 16 Go Locals available, which means we support keeping data in a specific country in 16 countries. And we've targeted those 16 countries based on business case, based on the regulations in those countries, the local laws. So having a green there, say for connections, topics, and insights personal, means that they are present in all 16 Go Locals. And a yellow means that they're planning to be in them or in a subset of them. So just clarifying that there.
And what I can say to kind of layer on Tanner's point is Insights is available in GCC today, right? For GCC High, in GCC High today, right? And everything in green is in GCC. That's where it exists today. And then to pile on too, everything in government when it comes to security, compliance, et cetera, takes some time. So those things that you see that are in that mid-range point of the orange with 6 to 9, if you haven't gotten going yet, by the time you get there, those things will likely be surfacing, right? So that's one of the key things about getting going now. For all the agencies, right? If you've not really plugged into, I see a lot of action and insights, but especially around connections, that's the key of it, right? It's just to know these things are all coming and to start to build on so that you can know what to expect when, and that this will be a journey for sure.
Yeah, and to your point, Bonnie, we're seeing the same trends in Canada, right? We're all in North America here, and to your point, I think as you're looking to create your strategic plan, and Tanner, thank you for adding relevance to these to the nomenclature here. I do appreciate that. I think there's a real uniqueness, right, to the solutions that we can create right now across these three pillars. And this is what motivates me, is the fact that the organizational insights and learning, we're targeting in the next 6 to 9 months. So yeah, I would agree with you intently, Bonnie. Our Canadian customers are doing the same thing, in that they're standing up, kind of their strategy and their business objectives right now, because they're looking to do some of these more specific implementations in the next, 6 to 12 months. Additionally, things like Glint and Pulse and Goals, they do require a lot more intention and a lot more synergy. And a lot of organizations do need that time to get there. So, we're creating that space here where, as you've completed, your engagements with whatever one of these are relevant to you, you can start to lean in more intently. But these do require a lot more synergy across the organization as well. So that's good runway. I just wanted to revalidate that. Any other questions in the chat on this before I move forward, folks? Okay, great. You'll note that it has today's date on it, and that's because Tanner and myself and the product team and engineering and marketing worked pretty late yesterday to make sure that we could share with you all of the latest documentation that is publicly available, so that you can use it within your own organizations. And it can answer probably a whole bunch of your questions. So let me just stop sharing real quick, and I'm going to navigate over to a couple of these and take you through some of the new documentation that's hot off the press. So can everybody see my screen again? Is that an affirmative? Yes, folks?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I was coughing.
That's okay. I can't see the chat, so I just wasn't sure. So thank you for confirming, Abby. So you'll see that I have three links open here. I'm going to take you through all three of them. And Tanner, if questions come up, just say, "Hey, Noah, stop," and I'll take a pause.
Will do.
I think it would be valuable. Thank you, Tanner. I think it would be valuable for you to look at these documents in this order, because I think it'll be the easiest way for you to understand. I will also take you through a couple of summary slides that are included in the deck that we'll be sharing with you, so that you have the highlights, and Tanner and I can happily take you through some questions and some QA after I've taken you through. So this will take about, maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then we'll pause and we'll resurface and take some QA. So the first thing, as I mentioned, when I started to introduce this conversation, is that we want to make sure that we know how security works within Viva. And I think what's most important is that your Viva apps, as we mentioned, are already integrated with the 365 capabilities, right? So now we really need to understand, as you heard in the Teams and SharePoint topic syntax experience, how do Teams and SharePoint security actually continue to inherit that security configuration and forward it throughout your organization. So we've created this document almost like a storytelling approach to help you understand how you should go level by level, not just from the 365 security framework perspective and some of the dynamic security that Tanner just referenced, but also application by application. You remember we also stated at the beginning that every application has its own level of security. So in this document, we explain to you, and I'm not going to go and bore you with this now, I'm trying to keep this lively and fun for you, but I just want to point you to where the documentation exists. This is where you will find the details on where security for Viva Connections is inherited from. The same thing for learning, right? And we'll give you some specific details about where you're ingesting that information, how we're handling that information, whether it's Microsoft content, non-Microsoft content, etc. Okay, some details on how you would administrate that, right? All of that is included in here, so you don't have to search through a bunch of documents. Everything is included, and it can answer many of the questions that I've actually heard you surface today in some of the conversations that we had in the initial presentation. Okay. Like I said, I won't get into all these details, but there is detail about, how the personal insights feature is built on the graph, which includes a set of REST APIs that you can integrate into. There's great content in here as well, and how we integrate with security there as well. And then, of course, you'll see that we've deep linked in here the documentation that will allow you to reference some of the details about how SharePoint security is driving topics, and how we can use sensitivity labels to classify information and topics as well. So we do want you to spend some time in security and privacy, specifically in Viva topics, as well as in Engage, which is Yammer rebranded. So we want you to understand how Yammer administrators can administrate, where Purview can support Engage behavior, we'll talk about in a minute as well. So make sure that you really take the time to drill into these deep links, because like I said, the storytelling is there to help you really understand what we've done. There's a lot of integrations that can come into goals. So you can understand here how we're looking at enabling integrations within goals to feed dashboards and to feed and inform some of the information that's forwarding in some of the UIs and goals. And then here's some specific information about security compliance. Viva Sales is not a product that is, specifically in the productivity suite, specifically that we talk about. It's more on the dynamic side, but we included it here as well because we wanted to make sure that you understood, right? A lot of people understand how it integrates into Outlook and it integrates into Teams. So we didn't want you to have to look somewhere else. So we included that in here as well, with some specific details about how you would integrate into Dynamics and Salesforce and other graph-related data. I'll take a pause. Any questions about what I've just showed you in security, or should I move on to privacy? And Bonnie should have been sharing this in the chat, so you can follow along on the tour with me if you'd like. Okay to move to privacy, folks? Any questions?
I think everyone's just in awe of all of this information.
I'm
So
trying
no questions
to,
right now, Noah.
I'm trying to go at a pace that is meaningful and not disruptive, but also keep it lively. So please, if don't be shy. If you do want us to stop, I'm happy to, but it is a lot. And I know that you've been asking for this for some time. So please take the time to sink your teeth into this. It's a lot. I'll move on to privacy, and please, like I said, pause and stop us if you have questions. So now that we understand how we've cloaked Viva in the security family in AAD, I'm going to talk more specifically about privacy and data. Now, it's more about how we help you protect your information, more than who's got access to your assets, right? So here is how we are protecting information. I'll spend some time. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on GDPR right now because it's not relevant. I am going to jump right into data residency. Okay. So there is a DPA, and that is how personal data is transferred and set forth. Anything that is in personal insights, let me just quickly infuse this, is stored locally and cached every 90 days, just like your exchange data. So anything that that the user sees, only that user sees, and it's cached out of their personal cache. Okay, this is referring to any information that is brought into the cloud that these applications, right, are relying on that. Okay, so it's where the geographic, where the data is stored, right, at rest. Okay, so Viva Connections and Viva Topics today are included in the Advanced Data Residency SKU, and we've provided some specific information about data residency for Viva Connections and Viva Topics. But additionally, what we've done is we have explained to you specific details about data residency for all of these pillars, because we want you to understand a couple things. First of all, where does that data reside, right? Where is it housed? And does it even collect anything? Is it relevant, right? We want you to understand where this is relevant to your implementations and where it is not, right? So you'll see here personal insights, for example, as I mentioned, is processed and stored in the Employees Exchange Online mailbox. Excuse me. So that residency is based on the employee's mailbox location, and that, as I mentioned, is cached every 90 days. However, the manager, leader, advanced insights, right? The data region for the manager in advanced is determined by the default geography, but the data rest, the header information and the metadata, right, sourced from Exchange Online, is stored in their specific central tenant location. So I'm not going to again get into the details here, but this is where we want, as Stephanie mentioned, don't be afraid to have the conversations with your teams about our security framework, because we want you to understand the surgical nature in which we have enabled this to make sure that we have met your needs. And where we have not met your needs, to reference the chart that we showed, we're working on it and it's coming, but we still want you to understand how we're thinking about handling it. Additionally, we've provided your 365 data locations, so you can link into these documents and you can actually understand where your specific tenants are located if you need that as well. I'll reference Copilot shortly, but how Microsoft uses AI, we're making a big announcement in about 18 minutes shortly here about a technology called Copilot within Viva. And you'll start to hear about how AI is going to start to inform some of these pillars. Right now, that AI, which you heard of, which evolved out of the AI that drove a lot of the work to evolve Syntex into the product that it is what's driving topics and a lot of what is informing connections. And that's why you see those synergies be so specific. Okay. So pay attention to that announcement. It's a big one. We're very excited about it, and it's happening, as I mentioned, at noon today. Additionally, to make it much easier for you than it was before, we have created a specific privacy and security control guide, and we have created a module by module chart of not just what information is available, but who has access and how is it managed. And I hope that you find this invaluable in starting to answer some of the questions that have been arising about the specific modules from within your organizations. So you'll see that we've taken some license here in making sure that you understand, where the integration is supporting content, how role-based access is allowing, Viva Learning, and specifically how the different levels of administration are relevant per product, because it will be different because the requirements are different. Okay. So you'll see that we've gotten very specific here, module by module, and we've highlighted different things for you. Okay. And we'll talk about Engage in a moment. I'm just scrolling through to be mindful of time and to leave time for Q&A as well. Any questions so far on privacy before I move over to compliance? Okay, great. I'm happy to give people more time to have lunch, so I will try to wrap very quickly here, and we'll wrap on a high note with AI and Viva. So let's talk lastly about compliance. So Microsoft offers a comprehensive set of compliance offerings that you're probably already aware of, and Viva is also covered under our product terms and our DPA. I would direct you into our Trust Center, where we have a whole bunch of information about some of the things that I mentioned. If you need to drill into that more specifically, I'm sure that many of you are very interested in understanding more about inheritance, and we'll talk about that shortly. But really, and this is where I welcome Tanner if you want to lean in on anything here, but I really want you to understand the shared responsibility model and how we are looking at collaborating with our customers as we build models in the Microsoft cloud. So you're always the data controller. This is always your data. We're not collecting any information about your organization, about your employees. You are always in control of your data. And as I mentioned with some of the security and privacy details that I shared, we've shown you how you can configure that and how you can secure that and how you can use that. And how we operate that data as a processor for you is completely transparent, right? Everything that we allow you to report on within AAD, within the built-in security in 365, the ongoing compliance and audit, the additional securing that we can address with products like Purview, allow us to operate for you as a processor so we can forward some of the solutions that we've talked about under the guise of a shared responsibility model. The online services for teams and our data protection agreement encompasses all of the compliance language that we need to ensure that we're meeting those requirements, and Viva falls within that shared responsibility model. Tanner, anything you wanted to add on that shared responsibility model before I move on to inheritance of compliance?
Yeah, I think just one thing here, Noah. Remember that Viva apps are software as a service applications. So we're managing the majority of the stack for you on your behalf, right? Same with Office products. We're going to manage everything from infrastructure up all the way. You're going to put your data in the application. You're going to configure identity and access controls. We're going to have our own identity and access controls we do on our end to make sure our engineers are accessing the production environment in a safe and secure way. But we control the majority of the stack. You control your data in the application. That's the way we've been doing it with software as a service. So just a reminder of where Viva sits in the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS model.
Thanks, Tanner. So with that said, it's pretty easy to understand how with this, Tanner and I were speaking earlier, and we said we need to make sure that we highlight this because a picture really does, say 1,000 words. And we want you to understand how what I just articulated to you as it relates to securing from the top down and from the inside out allows you to trickle that inheritance of compliance down across, which one of those applications you're going to activate through, right? So it is that combination of what you're doing with roles within SharePoint, roles within Access, within Exchange, users, and groups, as well as how you're looking to activate some of what you're doing in your Power Platform or in your third-party apps as some of your integrations, and your Yammer infrastructure that's informing Engage. So it's a formula, but all of that compliance from within this layer here that we've spent such good time and intention creating is going to trickle down based on the pillar that we choose to activate. And within these pillars is where we're going to activate that application security that we mentioned. Tanner, anything else that we should add as far as inheritance?
Now, just take a look at the bottom row there. You can see Viva apps, like I said, differ architecturally from one another. Some are built on Azure, some are built on deeply relying on SharePoint Online. Topics has SharePoint Online, but Topics indexing is based on Exchange Online. But what you're going to recognize is nothing in that bottom row is new. Those are all existing Microsoft services that have been audited that you have already gotten assurance through your reviews over. So it's not like these Viva services are going to be unique objects that you need to gain a newfound assurance over. I mean, of course, you'll have to do your due diligence, but that doesn't mean that these are going to be new, untested, unaudited pieces of infrastructure. They all live on infrastructure that you know and are familiar with. So get that assurance by through this level of inheritance that you can see here.
Great point, and an important point, right? One of the trends that we've seen within our customers is that it's an opportunity for you to actually start to understand how you synergize some of your initiatives. We see a lot of our customers who are aligning their SharePoint and Exchange Online migrations to what actually is low-hanging fruit to be able to help you forward some of the employee experience. So thanks for mentioning that. Certainly technology that everybody is very acquainted with, Tanner. Do you want to cover the SOC 2 stuff, Tanner, since you're already here?
Yeah,
Happy to
absolutely.
let you continue
Yep.
talking if you'd like.
Yeah. So we're in a little bit of w- it's just an effort within Microsoft really to get these Viva services listed in audit reports. Viva Connections, Viva Amplify, Viva Topics. And Amplify is not even on this list because it's not GA yet, but we're talking about it because we want to build your trust. We want to be transparent with our operations. Those are all built, those are microservices we call of exchange of SharePoint Online. So when we audit SharePoint Online, we are auditing the infrastructure of Viva Connections, Viva Topics, and Viva Amplify. They do not appear explicitly in the report, however, and so my team specifically has said, "Hey, our customers can't work with that, right? They need these Viva services explicitly listed in the reports. It's not enough to just understand that there's a shared, a completely shared reliant infrastructure on SharePoint Online. You guys need it listed in the report to really check that box to make sure that your regulators and that your oversight boards and your committees and your compliance teams are all comfortable with it. So there's an effort to get these Viva services explicitly listed in the audit reports. We're it might be enough for some organizations to say, okay, it shares, it's built upon SharePoint Online infrastructure, but not government customers, not financial services industry customers. You guys aren't going to accept that. So we're certainly working to get those services listed in the reports. And many services already are listed in a SOC 2 report. Viva Goals already listed in a SOC 2 report. Insights already listed in a SOC 2 report. Viva Engage. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but Viva Engage is Yammer simply rebranded. So the Yammer already has its own independent SOC 2 report. We're going to work to make sure that the Viva Engage name shows up in the next iteration of that report. So it's really just about making sure that everything is audited accurately so that you can get the assurance you need. And where it has been audited, can we get the Viva name included in the report explicitly? That's really where we're at with the audit reports. Thanks.
Thanks, Tanner. You do a much better job articulating that than I ever could, so I appreciate that. Let's chat real quickly about Purview. I'm sure that a lot of you have questions about Purview, and then we'll bounce back and we'll wrap in the next 2 minutes. So when we speak about setting up your organization, Purview, you should none of you should be a stranger to Purview is in our family of data governance compliance solutions. As Tanner mentioned, currently some of the features in Engage, Connections, and Topics are being supported within our security framework as well as, through Purview. And that really means that, as we need to e-discover, bad behavior or retain data, we're able to do that from an automated perspective, right? And you can see how that's important when people are posting and people are sharing content, and we need a technology like Purview to be doing the e-discovery. Note that sensitivity labels and data loss prevention are not supported, and there's some specific modes that are required to take advantage of e-discovery. I encourage you to speak with your teams about that specifically, because if there are gaps, we do want to understand them because we recognize that this is important. Viva Connections and Viva Topics inherent e-discovery and data retention from SharePoint Online for files involved in each service. That should be no surprise considering some of the details on the security architecture that we outlined for you as well. So with that, let's just do a quick check. I know that everyone's eager to get to lunch. Any additional questions on compliance? Otherwise, we've summarized these in some really nice slides for you. I'll just kind of go through them where some of the highlights are, and we have shared this as well. And if okay, I'm happy to share and wrap with this really interesting video about how we're extending AI into Viva. It's going to be co-pilot in 365 to Viva. And that's going to be very much tied to and boosting performance, as I call removing the friction from the business, combining the power of LLM GPT for 365 and the Viva apps, as well as the data and the graph. So we are really excited. That announcement is starting in 5 minutes, and we're looking forward to seeing how our customers extend what we're already doing with AI, right? Connections is using AI to rate the content. Viva Topics is using it to detect and identify topics. And it's only going to get better. So let me go ahead and share this video with you real quickly. I thank you for your time and your patience as my system syncs. And I will share and wrap with AI. Yes, Tanner.
Nope, actually hit the wrong button. Was going for the clapping. Saw the hand.
Oh,
Yeah,
I'll take raise hands. I'll take clapping. I'll take all of it. Terrific.
And folks, those purview features, right now they seem a little piecemeal. We're working on fleshing them out. All the Viva apps will have all the purview features. A lot of them are just on roadmap right now, but we're working really hard to get those integrated into a singular user experience.
Thanks, Tanner. So thank you everybody again for the time and for going on this security, privacy, compliance journey with Tanner and I. Tanner, thanks for being a great wingman today. I appreciate you as always. And let me wrap up with this wonderful video that will give you a little tour of Copilot and what everybody's talking about. And hopefully you'll be joining us on the big announcement that's starting in just a few minutes. So with that, I will end with this, and thank you for your time today, everybody.
No, I don't think we're hearing audio.
Still is very visually, you can kind of get it. Bet we can do a reshare.
From the graph with other
There
inputs
we
to
go.
There it
improve the
is.
Let me
prompt.
There it is.
start over, guys. I realized when I reshared, I didn't share
Microsoft
with sound.
365 Copilot is powered
go
by what
again.
we call the Copilot system, a sophisticated processing and orchestration engine. It harnesses the power of three foundational technologies: the Microsoft 365 apps, that's Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, and more. The Microsoft Graph, that's all your content and context, your emails, files, meetings, chats, and calendar. And a large language model, or LLM, a creative engine capable of parsing and producing human-readable text, all accessible through natural language. It starts with a prompt from you in an app. Copilot pre-processes the prompt through an approach called grounding. Put simply, grounding improves the quality of the prompt, so you get answers that are relevant and actionable. One of the most important parts of grounding is making a call to the Microsoft Graph to retrieve your business content and context. Copilot combines this user data from the graph with other inputs to improve the prompt. It then sends that modified prompt to the LLM. You may be familiar with what an LLM can do based on your experience with ChatGPT or Bing Chat. Copilot takes the response from the LLM and post-processes it. This post-processing includes additional grounding calls to the graph, responsible AI checks, security, compliance, and privacy reviews, and command generation. Finally, Copilot sends a response to the user and commands back to the apps. Copilot iteratively processes and orchestrates these sophisticated services to produce a result that feels like magic.
Well, thanks, everyone. I will let everybody head out to lunch. Appreciate your time today. And please don't hesitate to reach out with any questions that you have. Enjoy.
Thanks so much, Noah and Tanner. We really appreciate your time today as well. I know that I'm very excited about Copilot. When I first heard it, I thought for whatever reason my brain connected co as auto, and I was like,